You're listening to Trek FM.
Hi, and welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's celebration of 50 years of Star Trek, during which we talk about all 729 episodes of Star Trek from beginning to end. We're more than halfway through now, and that's not important. My name is Sue from Women at Warp, and I am here today with Trek FM staffer Zach Moore.
Hi, Sue. Good to be on another Trek FM From There to Here block with you.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, especially because our first episode today is 2 TNG episodes.
Mm-hmm.
First, we've got Firstborn. My favorite description of this was the Netflix description, which said that Worf takes his son Alexander to a Klingon festival. And so they're going to Greek Day down at the local church? It made me laugh a lot.
The classic first 10 minutes of the episode description that Netflix will give you.
Yeah, it's great. But in reality, we find out that Alexander has traveled back in time to first try and convince himself to become a warrior, but if that doesn't work, to kill himself. It's very interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this episode is a little weird. You know, it's old Alexander who comes back in time, so we're to believe that we now live in an alternate universe here. Because when I was rewatching this episode, I'll be honest, so Firstborn and Bloodlines, those are our two episodes today, and I always get those titles confused in my mind because it's all these interchangeable Season 7 Next Generation titles about family. Homeward, Inheritance, Bloodlines, Firstborn, so I call it, Star Trek, The Family Reunion, right? And this is another installment of that. So despite the weird time travel angle that they pull at the end of the episode, I did like this episode, especially for being an Alexander episode. I felt the examination of him getting older and having to choose between living a Klingon life or living a human life, because he is a fourth human, so it's not like he's completely rejecting his Klingon heritage. He has some ground to stand on when it comes to, hey, look, I don't want to be a Klingon warrior. I'm part human too. He even says that in the episode. So I felt that they explored that pretty well. And Worf having trouble parenting him, and that's always been a subplot since he came to live on the ship. So for what it was, I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I think this gives us a little bit of a closer look into Klingon society, because old Alexander tells us that he was, I think, a peacemaker or a governor, somebody in the government, right? Not a warrior. And when you really think about what we're presented of Klingon culture, if you go any bit deeper, the society falls apart. Not everybody can be a warrior. You need people in the government. You need, sanitation workers. You need scientists. You need people to do things. So not everybody is a warrior. But Worf can't wrap his mind around his son not wanting to follow in his footsteps. And I think this is a nice episode in that it helps Worf see that there is another way for someone, and that Alexander needs to find his own way.
Yeah, and then it's the older Alexander is actually played by the same actor who played the Defector, and he went on to play Dr. Mora too. So he's a real familiar Trek face. But once I knew that, I was like, oh, I can kind of see him coming through there. But I think he did a really good job being a Romulan and now being a Klingon.
Speaking of Romulans, apparently the original premise of this episode was that it would be not Alexander at all, but a Romulan ship that shows up with Federation markings, supposedly from a future where the Federation and the Romulan Empire were at peace with each other. But it was going to, turn out to be a hoax, and there would be different versions of Riker and more Romulan war plot, which I think could be interesting. But I think that, especially Season 7 of TNG, they're talking a lot about legacy. Right, so it fits in better the story that it became.
Yes, a more small-scale story about, a personal family here. Although, I will say they really brushed over the fact how Alexander went back in time. He's like, I met a man.
He found a guy on a street corner.
Yeah. Some shady guy under a bridge or something, sold him some magic beans, and he went back in time. So what happens to old Alexander? Did he go back to his time period somehow, because at the end, like Worf and him have this nice moment. They hug each other and say, "Oh, I love you, Father. I love you too." And then the next scene is Worf talking to young Alexander, and he's like, "Where's I forgot his name already. Something,
Kimtar.
Right? Because it's a Klingon. Kimtar. There it is. He's like, "Where's Kimtar? I'm ready to start training." He's like, "He had to go." I'm like, "Well, where did he go?
And how?" 40 years from now, you can just time travel whenever you want.
That's just a weird loose end, because you have, I guess, I don't know how old he'd be, a 50-year-old Alexander running around in the 21st century. And let's talk about how old Alexander is supposed to be, right? So he was conceived in season 2, right? Mm-hmm. And so we met him in season 4. And yeah, he looked old for a 2-year-old, but it's like maybe Klingons, age faster. Like some species on Earth, they mature much faster because they have to, because of the environment they grow up in. And I could buy the Klingon physiology has to grow up faster. I'm like, okay, so he looks a little older. But sure. Worf's talking about the age of ascension is what, 13, 14? The first age of ascension. He's like, you're soon approaching your age of ascension. I'm like, 13? This kid is like 4 or maybe 5. And he looks like he's 12. Like, we need to take a step back and figure out all the ages here. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
I know it's always a struggle with child actors and stuff, but it was just funny to hear him talk about that.
I think he's supposed to be closer to like 6 or 7, which I would buy, because the years aren't necessarily matching up with the seasons, even though they kind of do when they talk about it. But you're approaching the age of ascension. This is your first step before that ceremony that maybe takes place at 13. Maybe? But yeah, it doesn't quite line up.
I did like the moment where Worf is rehearsing his speech to Alexander at the beginning of the episode.
Yes.
Before he walks in. Because, on Star Trek, everybody has these wonderful monologues and soliloquies about life and destiny and becoming a man. And you think, like, man, did they just come up with that on the spot? But, Worf is, like, practicing before Alexander walks in. And then he messes up, and he's like, oh, a man becomes a sword. Like, oh, no, not a sword, a warrior. It was a funny moment. And I didn't really, I didn't remember this episode that well. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great little Worf story with Alexander and leaves them in a good place moving forward.
Yeah, I also really appreciate the Klingon opera / reenactment staging. I just enjoy it. I enjoy Michael Dorn singing, because of course I do. But yeah, that's about it for me for Firstborn. So why don't we move on to Bloodlines? Damon Bach is back, returning from the battle season 1. Still trying to seek revenge on Picard for killing his son, so Bach wants to kill a son that Picard never knew he had.
Yep, that's what happens in this episode. So Damon Bach, right? He's played by a different actor here, which kind of negates the entire thing. Like, if you're going to bring back a character like that and you can't get the actor, you know what? Just pick a different story, pick a different character, because if you're going to call back to something, let's truly call back to something. It's completely unrecognizable.
Apparently, this story was actually kind of a request from Patrick Stewart. According to the information I found, Jerry Taylor was speaking to him on set during filming earlier in the season and asked him if he thought there were any aspects of the Picard character that were unresolved. And Stewart said he was unsatisfied with the Damon Bach story from the battle, and said that it always fascinated me that there was this creature running around the universe, even now, who despises me. So Jerry Taylor gave the idea to the writers' room, and they fleshed it out.
Yeah, sure, Patrick. That's if you think that's a story worth revisiting, that's up to you, man. The battle really, it's actually one of the better season 1 episodes. I liked all the Stargazer stuff, so it was a cool little look into Picard's past at the time. But I felt like so much time had passed since then, we really didn't need to go back to that, especially making the Ferengis villains and all that stuff. I do like when they're trying to figure out what's going on with Bach. The Enterprise, they contact Ferenginar and ask whoever the people in charge are of these things, and they're explaining that Bach went to prison after the events of the battle, but he bought himself out about 4 years into his sentence, and that's just a very Ferengi thing. I like that little hint of their culture and character. I can totally see that's how their legal system and justice system works.
Yeah, I totally enjoyed that little bit of he purchased his way out. But I think it's weird to bring this character specifically back to TNG, because when he and the Ferengi in general were introduced, in TNG, they were so different. And Ferengi have changed so much since that time that it feels out of place to me. And then there's this genetic engineering of this son, and how do I be a parent? And I will say Patrick Stewart does some phenomenal acting work, being this closed-off captain who's trying to open up to this young man he thinks is his son.
Who, by the way, gave me a really big Jim Carrey vibe. Did you get that from his son? Like a
I think it was the spiky hair.
Yeah, like the big kind of large head of hair, and then occasionally he looked like when Jim Carrey was trying to be a little more serious. I just got some Jim Carrey vibes. He looked very 90s, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I guess that guy was okay as a character. I mean, he was. When they beam him up, right? So they beam him up, Jason, from the planet they find him at, and he's in the midst of rock climbing, right? So they beam him up. Picard comes in, talks to him a little bit, and Jason's like, okay, look, why don't you guys just beam me back? And then he positions himself in the same climbing posture that he was in. I'm like, wait, did you expect him to just beam you back to the side of a mountain? Is that not the most dangerous transport ever to have to do that? That was crazy, man. I would never do that.
Oh, but it was amusing.
There you go. Hey, it's making us laugh, right? So, and since when is Damon Bach such a technological guy? I know he had those mind control things in the battle, but in here he's changing people's genetic code. He's transporting through quantum slipstreams or whatever, sending out holographic probes. This guy,
subspace transporters.
Yeah. Excuse me. My apologies. But
I don't want to get the email.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Let us know in the Babel conference what it is. But the Ferengi, I mean, they're not Vulcans, right? So he has some pretty advanced science for just being a greedy Ferengi who bought his way out of jail.
So yeah, there's really no explanation of where Bach gets this technology. Especially because the Enterprise crew is well, we tried this, but it took a lot of energy and nobody really perfected it. And suddenly this ex-con Ferengi has it, who has been relieved of command by the Ferengi government because he was unstable? That seems strange.
Well, being a Ferengi maybe had some black market connections and got it that way. It's really my only explanation, but... yeah, there was a lot of contrivances in this episode to get them where they needed to be, and it was ultimately kind of anticlimactic, I thought, and they tried to build up the suspense. Oh, he is your son. Oh, he's not your son, and all that back and forth. And I don't know, but you're right. Patrick Stewart did a good job in this episode, and playing the whole, oh, I'm a father now. How do I even? What does that even mean? This kid's in his 20s, and I haven't been a part of his life. I only knew his mother for a couple weeks. Back 25 years ago. Riker and Picard have a nice moment because Damon Bach comes on the view screen and says, "I'm going to kill your son, Picard," and nobody knows or thinks Picard has a son. So Picard starts telling him, "Okay, why don't you look up this woman on this planet?" And Riker delivers the news to him and leaves. And he's like, "Will, thank you for not asking, but I feel like I owe you an explanation." So that was a nice moment of the crew kind of respecting Picard's privacy there.
It's weird and clearly awkward, as it would be, right, in that case.
Yeah, it's like somebody calls you at your job on speakerphone and reveals that you have a child that nobody knows about. That's the thing about the view screen. You can't really have any private conversations like that, but yeah.
Well, it was hailing him specifically, and he decided to put it on the view screen, so...
That's right. That's a good point, Sue. It's all on you, Picard. Should have taken that one in your ready room.
But then, Jason's not his son anymore, and we never hear from him again.
Mm-hmm. As is many the case for many of these last-minute family members we find out about in Season 7 of Star Trek, The Family Reunion.
Well, all right. Do we have any more to add about Firstborn or Bloodlines?
I think we pretty much said all we have to say.
All right. Fantastic. Let us know what you think in the Babel Conference. And we'll be back tomorrow with some DS9 and some TNG. Zach, where can people find you on the internet?
On the internet, you can find me personally at MooreOnZach. That's MooreOnZach. And I'm the host of my own podcast, Always Hold On to Smallville, where we talk about each and every episode of That Young Superman Show. We're at Always Smallville on Twitter with one S. What about you, Sue?
You can find me hosting Women at War, or you can find me on Twitter at Spaltor. That's Spaltor. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.